It's a great day to flex your freedom. I'm your host, Barb Allen. And whether you know it or not, you have more than likely encountered today's guest in some format on some platform, because when you see pictures of celebrities, musicians, news people sometimes, or maybe just your local realtor or your professional, it's if they're in one of these areas, what are they? New York, DC, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Nashville, and probably all around the rest of the country as well. People fly in and work with this guy, Barry Morgenstein. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and for sharing. In advance, I'm going to thank you for sharing some of the insight you have, because you struck out and built a profession and a path and a flourishing career in one of the toughest cities out there, which is New York. And you've been through all of its ebbs and flows and dynamics and COVID and all that stuff, and you're still standing. So it's going to be super fun to talk to you, get some insight from you, and of course, talk about the way that you support our veterans and our law enforcement officers, which is obviously very near and dear to my heart. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Happy to meet you finally.
Yeah, I know. We were just talking a minute ago, and that our circles overlap in so many areas. And I think this is something that runs true for so many people. The world feels so big, but when you find yourself working in a certain community, that world kind of dwindles, and that community can be national or larger, but you all tend to kind of gravitate to the same people and the same threads and all that. And so I've seen you around. I've seen you around, man.
Yeah, a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah, really. It's fun to connect. All right. So let's start first, because you really do have to my knowledge anyway, one of the most thriving, successful, accomplished careers in photography, in particular headshots, that I know of. And the fact that you've built that in New York City, which has a tendency to chew people up and spit them out, right?
I just spit back. That's all.
There you go. I love it, right? But not that could be really terrifying to people, or overwhelming, or they'll say, I'm not even going to try it. Or you picture that young kid like, Mom, I'm going to go to New York and make this living for myself. And she's like, well, you're crazy. I'll see you back here in 6 months,
Right.
And I think that's the go-to for people, because it seems so impossible. And not everybody's going to make it. Not people are going to come to New York or any other large city and fall and fail and go home. So let's talk about that first. Your path to doing what you're doing in one of the most, in one of the toughest cities to make it happen.
Right, the toughest, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I guess I've been lucky and just been determined and stuck to what I want to do, what I love. And I didn't let negativity bring me down. I didn't let rejection stop me. You just have to keep going and just keep fighting. Or rejection sometimes makes you stronger, because obviously in the beginning you get a lot of rejection, like a lot of people with actors, musicians, same with photographers. People say, well, you're not going to make it. But so that just kind of pisses you off a little and just makes you stronger. And I was determined, and I guess I did okay.
I guess you did do okay is a little bit of an understatement. I guess I did all right. Yeah, I guess it's an understatement. So how old were you? Like, did you just love photography growing up? Was it your passion?
No, not at all. Actually, it's funny. I love music. I was into music, and I play guitar. I didn't get into photography till probably early 20s. I even took a photography class in high school, and I wasn't interested. I think I just all I accomplished was driving my teacher a little bit crazy. So I always wanted to go back and visit her and tell her what I did, because she'd probably get a kick out of it. But yeah, so it was basically, I had a love for music, and that's kind of what led me to photography. Is I realized I wasn't going to have a career as a guitar player. I wasn't talented enough. I just loved it. But I was in a band in my early 20s, and I picked up a camera and started photographing my friends in the band, and the singer who happened to be my girlfriend at the time. I started photographing her and the fellow musicians, and I realized my love for music, I had this eye. I knew how to capture them. So so music is kind of what led me into the photography, and I just kind of took it from there. I got a job with a big rock and roll photographer in New York, and as his assistant, and then after 2 years went on my own, and so yeah, that's how it happened.
All right. So let's unpack a lot of the stuff that you said there, because doing what we do, and even from our own experience, I come from a family. I have 6 brothers and sisters, and I think the 6 of them, maybe I have a twin brother. And so we kind of apply the same philosophy to life, even though we do it in completely different ways. But they're all like steady, solid schedules, regular paycheck. Like they love that. That's their world. They love it. They feel comfortable in it. They're doing well in it. You know, whether they're teachers or they work for a corporation or a medical profession, whatever it is, they're like structured. Their lives are structured. And to
Right.
me, that feels smothering. Like they find their freedom in that life. To me,
Right.
that feels like a jail, right?
Right.
So I find my freedom doing what we're doing, but it's not an easy path to take. And
No.
you
Well,
sought out
pros and
like,
cons for sure.
yeah, like you didn't want to. I like that you were all in on the music. That was where you felt it. But just because you said, you know, you had that moment where, hey, I'm not going to make it in music, but here's this other thing I love. You were open to the potential. You didn't just say, well, I'm not going to make it in music. I may as well go, you know, work for minimum wage or a corporate job. Like you didn't just give up on living a life that fulfilled you. You were
Right.
open. So I think that's a really important distinction to make for people, that just because one path that you think you're going to go down doesn't pan out, doesn't mean you have to just give up entirely and surrender and say, well, I gave it a shot. Like I'm never going to do anything. Right. Like what was it then? How did you then get that job, that working as that assistant? Because even that's a big step. Like a lot of people would say, okay, I'm good at taking pictures of my band members. That's cool.
Right.
But still do nothing with it. So, you know, you went from this step to that step to that step. And at every one of those steps is where people fall out. You know,
Right.
so does that make sense? Like, so
Yeah. You know, I
yeah,
tried. You know, I worked. My dad he had a shoe importing company. I worked for him for a summer, and I realized, and my brother worked for him. And I'm not an office guy. I'm not like you said, 9 to 5 guy. And I was always more creative. And I just knew when I worked for retail, tried that, and then when I was in my early 20s, and it's just not my lifestyle. So, yeah, I just I don't know, just I was determined to do something creative, and I think I knew right away. I had a feeling that photography was going to be my path. That's through my love for music. I knew I had the eye for it, and it just no looking back. I just went for it, and I was lucky.
did
You know?
people have any opinion to offer you when you told them that you were going
Yeah, I
to?
always remember a friend of my parents. She said, "Oh, don't do photography. There's too many photographers out there." And I always remember that as like and I could have taken that as and that could have turned me off and say, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't do that." But luckily, I ignored that bit of advice, and you know, so yeah, so people, same thing again, like trying to be a musician or an actor. People might say, "Well, you better have something to fall back on." So, but
Which isn't a
my
bad
parents
idea.
were great. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to have something to fall back
It
on, have
is. It
something in your
is.
back pocket. Like that's
It
always a
is.
good idea to have that
Good
back.
idea. I just didn't do it, but unfortunately, I just
Right.
haven't.
Yeah,
But I
I
was
hear
lucky.
you.
So I was lucky. So you know, but in the beginning, so in the very beginning, I was just determined. I always remember a story. I was watching the news in New York, and they were featuring this famous fashion photographer. I remember his name, Stephen Meisel, and I was looking at this guy. He had like long jet black hair, and he was photographing this beautiful model, and he was playing rock and roll really live. And I'm like, I'd like to do that, you know. I actually called up the news station, and I got the lady who was covering the story, and I got her on the phone, which she was kind of surprised. I said, "Hey, you know, who was that guy? Do you have? Can I? I would like to call his studio, see if he needs an assistant." And she gave me his studio number, and I actually called him up, and he came to the phone, and he's a famous photographer, and he was impressed that I took the time to call the news station, track him down. You
Yeah.
know, at the time he didn't need anybody, but I think he gave me a little advice, and he was very gracious. And so I was just determined to kind of do what I wanted to do. So I went after it.
Did you wind up, is that the guy you wind up working for
No,
then?
and then the other guy, and then again, he didn't have any
Right.
available. You know, he didn't need an assistant basically. So yeah, I ended up with another guy, a rock and roll photographer, Mark Weiss. He was a big photographer, concert photographer, all the rock and roll magazines. But he eventually started sending me out on shooting live concerts, and he let me use the studio and learn there. So I built up a portfolio and contacts in the record business, and just went on my own after 2 years.
Was that the understanding when you started working with him, that you were going to work for him and, you know, be an asset to him But all the time you were learning so that you could go out on your own, or did you just decide to go out on your own?
I think I just decided to go out on my own. I mean, in the beginning, it was just going to be his assistant, but he did start. He started an agency and he started sending me out for photo shoots. And maybe he didn't think I was going to leave so soon. I think he was a little disappointed because,
I was going to say, was he a
yeah,
little
so,
bummed? I
yeah,
asked
so
because we have a friend of ours who we work closely with, and he's really talented as well, super talented
mhm,
photographer. He has moved into art. He's an artist, now painting and all that. But he remembers his days of running a studio where he did headshots, and he would train these assistants. He's like, I'd pour everything into them and I would train them, and then they would just leave, and then they'd want to be my competition and go out on my own. And he's like, over
yeah,
and over and over again. So I was wondering if that was kind of a similar situation,
yeah.
and how you dealt
But
with it.
and I did the music for a while too. But as you know, but then that eventually that led me to the headshot. So
Yeah,
that is not something he didn't do. So yeah, we went our different paths, I guess. So
a
I really
different path.
found my real specialty was the headshot. So
Yeah, I touch on that because again, I'm going to keep hammering on all these places where that might become stopping points for people when you're in the path and now you've developed the skills and you've learned that you love it and you really want to go out on your own. But that's another place that some people might stop, because they're afraid to go out on their own and
right,
everything that entails. There's no safety net to catch you if you fall, no one to blame or turn back on. But B, you might feel like your obligation to that person outweighs your obligation to yourself, right? To go follow your path. So that's why I wanted to
right.
touch on that as well. To show, are you still in touch with that guy today? Did you stay in touch?
No, not
No,
really. No, not really.
everyone has a season, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
A season, yeah. And I'm just asking because I just like to break this down into really digestible steps for people and tear apart, because it is so hard to go out there, and I hate seeing people just give up when they hit an uncomfortable situation or something that's scary or something along those lines. So you started photography in the music industry, and then that just kind of took you off. And all this time you're in New York. Like, are you living in an apartment on your own? Are you
Yeah, well,
crashing on
actually, I really
couches?
I started off still live in New Jersey, and I started off living in New Jersey, and I worked out of a studio in Montclair, New Jersey. So I was a home/studio. So I was there for about 17 years before I actually got a studio in New York, and I really built up my reputation and realized for what I do, I had to be in New York. That's where all the professionals were, the actors, the newscasters. So that's yeah. I ended up having a studio, and I've been there for about 20 years.
Wow. So now there's so many people popping up their headshots on websites or bios, or whether it's their personal website or their social media page or on Times Square, their picture is popping up and all that. And I feel like a lot of those are probably your work.
Yeah, sometimes you could see it on billboards or the back of buses.
Yeah.
The news people you might see. A great moment for me was once I was sitting in traffic in New York, and there was a bus right in front of me, and on the back of the bus was my photo of two newscasters. And then I looked in my rear view mirror, and there was another bus behind me, and my photo was on the front of their bus. So I'm looking at my photo in front of me and in back of me. So that was kind of a cool moment.
That's freaking awesome. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone start a story with a great moment for me as I was sitting in traffic. That's,
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah.
that's a
One of the few
really
good traffic moments in New York. When I'm not cursing at people, I was actually happy that moment.
really, really, it has to be a good moment for anybody to turn sitting in traffic into a good thing.
Right.
I think anyway. All right. So then how did you build up your network? Because there's, again, I think people overlook or try to jump ahead of the path to success, and that is building relationships as well. Some people just want to kind of leapfrog right to the top and expect people, hey, like, hey Barry, oh, all these people, could you call like Tucker Carlson for me and get me
I
on
get
a
that one all
show,
the time.
like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You get that.
I
Right?
guess, especially Tucker specifically. It's funny you said that.
Yeah,
People, yeah, I get that request a lot. Yeah. And
I imagine, right? So how would you explain to someone I mean, I don't know if you're just like, no, up yours, I'm not using, but how do you make somebody understand in a way that they actually take the lesson in and absorb it and learn from you, that look, just because you can't, your network and people trusting you with their contact information is trust. Like you can't just spill it and
Right.
just put it out there to the world. Like, cause that's
Yeah.
they're not entrusting you with their information for that.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
how would you explain that to somebody that, your network is your network and, that's not like a commodity to be given
Right.
away.
I just say no. I'm not calling Tucker.
Right. I get you. I hear you.
Yeah, no, I'll
I've
explain. Like you said, I'll explain to them. Say, look, these are they trust me. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people use me is because, well, I guess hopefully because I'm good at what I do, but
right.
also I'm very laid back, but I'm very professional, and I don't take advantage of I guess their fame, and I'm not gonna. I'm very private with them too. I guess I'm very like trying to think of the word is I'm just very respectful of their privacy. So I would never do that. But there is a few times somebody could come to me too, getting to what we're probably going to talk about is my support for military and veterans.
Right.
And a few times I have some people have come to me with some very important things, maybe to help out a veteran, and so I've gotten them on news shows. If I thought it was something very important and it was somebody I knew in the news and I thought they were going to be interested in the story, and if it was important, then I might do it. But
That's a different thing. Like,
right,
hey,
that's completely
Tucker
different.
producer
Right,
or the Fives producer or whoever it is. So
right,
like reach out to a producer and say, hey, here's the link. I met this person. Do you think you guys might be interested? That's like a different
right.
story than
And
saying,
then I'll do it. But yeah,
like,
but like you
hey,
said,
buddy,
I'll get some
here's
unreasonable things. I'd like send my music to so and so, or I'd like to you know
maybe you
you know
could have it like playing in your studio while the person's coming in for a headshot. And if they're like, hey,
right,
this is a good music. And then you go
right,
like, oh yeah,
right.
that's a client,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, there's different ways. But how would you then, so say you are somebody who is teaching somebody the power of building your network
Mm.
and how you cultivate and preserve those relationships and the impact they have. Like what would be some advice for somebody who, like, say you're out somewhere and somebody meets a star that they've been followed and they
Mhm.
love and adore? Would you go rushing up to them and try to get the selfie and then expect that you're gonna like be BFFs and they're gonna call you the next day? Or like how could you take an opportunity like that and use it to crack the door to building a relationship?
Well, definitely not being pushy like that. I think anybody I've come across, I think everybody feels comfortable with me because I'm just kind of a regular guy. I'm like I'm not over the top or just. I mean, you have to be yourself. I think I'm just a regular guy, and that's what they appreciate about me. But
Yeah.
you certainly want to just be polite and just if I do have somebody come in the studio, they're just so comfortable with me because I'm not like, oh my God, it's you or whatever. Just
Yeah.
we just hang out. We just hang out and talk or whatever. So that makes them feel comfortable, I believe.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I am the same way. I have this life that has just been a little bit bizarre, and all of a sudden, I'll be in a room, and somebody like a celebrity status or someone famous, or maybe it's a professional athlete, and I don't follow, and I don't even know who that person is.
Mhm.
But then somebody will say to me, "Hey, that's so and so." I I have no problem just talking to them like a everyday person, right?
Right.
For me, it's when I've met people like the Medal of Honor recipients or someone like the Benghazi guys that I am
That's
like a little like, whew, like I get more nervous like meeting somebody
well, yeah.
who
It's
I just hold in such huge,
right.
just massive respect for what they've done and what they've been through.
That's the
I have
same.
been known
That's
to,
exactly how I am.
yeah, I've been known to get a little tongue tied when the first person I interviewed that I was really scared of was John Tigan, Tig Tigan. One of
He's a great guy.
I was
Yeah.
like petrified to interview him because
Mhm.
I just had such enormous respect and I connected so much with their story and the betrayal
Mhm.
that they experience and the adversity they face. And I was so nervous to interview him. And he was just such a nice guy, and I've since gone on to interview a lot of other people that I might otherwise have been nervous to interview. But it is fun, isn't it? When you are able to just, I think people appreciate when you just look at them like a person and like you're not talking to that personality or that persona or whatever. You're just connecting on a
Mhm.
on a human basis. I think it means a lot to people.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what you said now in the beginning of my career, it's like my goal was, oh my god, I want to meet Mick Jagger and Jimmy Page or whatever. It's like, but now I'm more impressed with the guys from Benghazi,
Yeah.
Medal of Honor recipients. That's who I'd love. I would love to get Rob O'Neill in my studio. He's my, people, somebody like that. I
Oh,
just
really?
like, and one of the first, I actually photographed the Benghazi guys, and I've gone on to be pretty good friends with all three of them, especially Chris. Me and him are good buddies. He's
So I
Tom.
just interviewed him like a
Oh,
month
you're
ago,
kidding. Oh my God,
and
isn't he the best?
it took me 3 years to get that interview.
Oh wow, you should have called me. I would have texted him and said, do that interview.
But
No,
it was funny because we laughed about it, and he's like, I don't think,
he's the
and
nicest
he
guy.
was in a different space, and I was in a different space. So I think the
Right.
timing was perfect that I just
Oh,
interviewed him. What a great
I
guy!
can't.
Right?
I'd like to see that. But yeah, well, so they came to my studio. I was hired by their, I guess, PR company
Yeah.
right before I think it was when the book came out, but the movie hadn't come out yet.
Okay.
So they weren't really known. But I remember that they were all just. I was in awe. I knew who they were. I was in awe of having them in my studio. I was so happy and excited to have them there. And again, just like all three great guys. And I remember Chris had this great personality, and I remember I said to him, you're gonna be famous one day. Not just for your not only for what his
Yeah.
heroics. He's obviously a hero, but he just has this great outgoing person. He has just such a good personality, and I was right. He just he's a great I've seen him speak numerous times, and but he's humble.
Yeah.
Again, like you go back to musicians. I have no patience for musicians or actors who have very big egos, because then you meet somebody like these three guys,
Right.
or metal art, and they're all always like the nicest people, the most humble people that you want to meet. They don't like to be called heroes, but even though I insist that I call them that because that's what they are.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't
but
like it.
still,
I
they're
don't like it
humble.
when they call me ma'am either, but they still do it. Stop
Well,
calling me ma'am like this.
but I just like that. Just very polite and very, just a gentleman. That's just, and they're also a lot of fun. Great guys. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
They
yeah.
are.
So,
That's
but
fun. See, small world. Another small world story. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So share with us a moment, and you don't have to name names. I know just doing what we do, I've had some interviews with some guests that I am literally like, oh, this is torture, not what I thought it was going to be, because either whatever the reason, we just didn't click. Sometimes there's no synergy or whatever. And so, like, for me to interview a guest, we have to be able to kind of like work off each other. Right. And so
Right.
I'm imagining the same as when you're shooting somebody, right? Like, you have to be able to get that person to relax and to trust in
Sure.
you and to show themselves, and that spark and that spirit, that moment that you're looking to
Absolutely.
capture. Has there been somebody once, more than once, that you just couldn't make that connection with for whatever reason, that you were like in the session and you're like, oh my gosh, like, God, this is a struggle.
Yeah, no, sure. That happens. I guess I couldn't even think of specific names. Luckily, I've been lucky. It doesn't happen a
Yeah.
lot, but there's definitely some times, you just, I gotta get through the shoot. It's like, this is a tough one. It's like, one I did, it was a soap opera actress. I'll never forget. And, I started shooting her, and she was like, I guess she didn't like the wardrobe that the wardrobe people brought, and she just broke down and started sobbing in the middle of the shoot. I was like, kind of course I won't say it. It was just, I didn't
No,
know what
you
to
don't have to
do.
say, yeah, it's better without the name.
But
It's
it was,
better
you're
without
standing
the
there,
name.
it's like, okay, just, it was very awkward, and you don't know what to do. So, but that's rare. That's rare stuff. Like, you deal with people that are, just a little, not so easy to work with, but I've been lucky. Most of my people have been great.
Yeah, I just know that it's hard because you want to do your best by them, right? Like, you want
Oh
to
yeah,
love them
yeah,
out. You want to
yeah. You
encourage
want
them.
them to look the best, and want them to be comfortable. And again, my studio is very relaxed. We always play music in my studio. We have candles going. It always smells good. We just have fun between me and my makeup artist and my team.
Yeah.
We just hang out, we talk, we have a good time. I always interested in what everybody does, whether if they're musicians, I'll ask them, because I love music. I'll ask who's their big influences are, and we'll talk music. I love movies and acting. If it's an actor, I'll find out who their favorite actors or movies are, what their influences are.
Yeah.
And the military people, we have a lot. I love American history. I love military history. So, and as you know, I admire those people. So I have a great respect. So I think
Yeah.
that comes across. So they feel comfortable.
All right, so let's get into that then. You are a strong supporter of the military, law enforcement, and all that.
Right.
why? Like, a lot of people who
Yeah,
don't serve have no connection to it,
yeah,
feel
no, yeah,
disconnected from it, right?
right,
So,
yeah. No, I never served in the military. I think it's kind of like as I changed over the years when I was, I grew up in the '70s and '60s and '70s, and I was a rock and roll kind of hippie-ish type, a little more different on the political, aisle, I guess. I was a little more to the left, I guess, as
mhm.
a lot of young people are.
Yes.
Not to get political, but actually
Oh,
things
we can get
changed.
political if you
Oh,
want.
okay, all right, okay, yeah. So I was very liberal, and actually, my moment change is very clear. Is 9/11 is what changed me. I
Okay.
became it was almost instant. I became very conservative, very pro military, very pro law enforcement, and it was a kind of almost like an awakening for me. It was like I just everything changed for me, and I just became such a big supporter and became very involved politically too, very outspoken, like our good friend Chris. So
Yeah.
it gets me in trouble too sometimes, but yeah, I've just always I've always I just love the military. And I'm involved with law enforcement too, supporting them whatever I can. My I always say I'd like to be the Gary Sinise of photography. Which I just admired him, and I've met him and photographed him too. I just don't have his fame and power that he has, so I have to do it on a smaller scale. Maybe I'll do it.
Right.
I photograph Gold Star mothers, Gold Star wives, or Gold Star families for free. I don't charge them. I give discounts to veterans. So that's my small way of giving
Right.
back, and I volunteered for different, for Gary Sinise Foundation.
Do you
For
know
other,
his foundation just took over an organization called Snowball Express? And
no, I don't know that.
Snowball Express is an organization. It was started, I'm going to say somewhere around 2007, maybe 2006. I don't remember, but it was the first or second Christmas after my husband was killed. I had the four little boys. They were 6, 5, 3, and 1 when my
Oh wow,
husband was killed in Iraq.
right,
And so Christmas is hard to, it's hard. The holidays, it's hard when
of
you're
course.
grieving someone and you're alone. So the Snowball Express was an organization that reached out and flew families of the fallen to Disney. Oh no, not to Disney that
Oh,
year, to California.
I am
It was
aware of that.
that
I just
year.
thought that was the name, right?
So right, so that those first few years, it was out to California, and we went to the Disney out there and just got together for some holiday spirit to meet people in person and all that. And it became this thing that was really important to me and my boys. That organization, the
That's so
people
great.
in it, raised my kids sort of, and so
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, they became mentors to me and my kids, and it's worked out. Great, solid friendships. People have become family,
Oh,
relationships,
that's
networks, and
amazing.
all that. But Gary Sinise just took that over a few years ago.
Yeah. Okay. I think maybe I did know, but that's fancy and stuff like that. That's
Yeah,
exactly.
he
I
took
love
that
that.
over, and now they
Yeah.
go to Disney in Florida.
Right. Right. And I know he does the I forget what it's called too when he takes the World War II vets to the memorial
Oh, the
in
honor flights. Yeah,
honor flights, and
the
I always
honor
wanted to
flights.
go on one of those. That's like I would love to have done that or to do that. But yeah, that's so. He's my inspiration too. So I like to try to
Yeah,
on a smaller scale what I can do.
he's out there. But you know what? Everybody, if we all just sat back and said, well, I can't be on Gary Sinise's scale, so I'm just not going to bother to do anything, then
Yeah.
where would we be, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not
Exactly.
all going to have the Gary Sinise platform, but
Right.
you
Right.
doing what you're doing, your
What we
ripple
can do.
effect, you probably don't even have any idea of the ripple effect of the support that you've had, whether it's the
Probably not.
just the emotional support. Maybe say the day the Benghazi guys came to your studio, and maybe there was a day that they got to just relax and unwind and breathe, and that got them through to the next day where they could, and they remember
Mhm.
that, oh my God, remember when we went to that studio and had that moment, and then their ripple effect hit other people. It could be something small like that, or it could
Yeah.
be a headshot that somebody can't afford to have taken, but they
Mhm.
really need. And so you're giving them this professional tool out of because you want to help them, and you're giving them
Right.
this tool that they're then using to use on their one sheet or whatever it is, and that helps them get the job that they're looking for, and then that ripple effect goes. Like, you just can't underplay.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope you're right. That would make me feel good if that's true.
Yeah, it
I hope
definitely
that's true.
has to be true. You can't
Yeah.
underplay the impact it had. Maybe even somebody super famous who has insecurity issues and
Mhm.
was really anxious about coming to your studio, and you help them relax and
Right.
kind of connected with them in a way. You just can never. I could probably sit here for half an hour and go on in different ways that you may have overlooked the impact that you make, because I think we all tend to do that. We tend to dismiss the impact that we could have because it's not the impact that we want to, that we're aiming to have. Right.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Hopefully
Yeah. It's one of my, I actually really, it's fun to do that, to sit down and dissect and go through all that. So if you do that, I'm going to challenge you to do that later today. I'm going to challenge
I
everybody
will.
listening to think about the ways that they come in touch with people and all the little ripple effects. Think about the things that have impacted you that
Right.
people may not know about. Right.
Right.
That
Right.
maybe you were just in a shit mood one day and someone did something cool for you, and that just helped you do something cool for somebody else, and on it
Right.
goes. Right. So the same goes in reverse. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of goes back to what we were saying about being outspoken
Yeah.
about politics, and you get attacked for that too, and but
Yeah.
people say, well, maybe you shouldn't do that because it might hurt your business, and
That's what I was just going to ask you next. Has
okay,
it?
good segue.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
but well, okay, so it's, in some ways it does. I'm sure there's I've had people say, well, I'm not going to work with you because you're conservative, you support Trump or big military or law enforcement supporters. But once in a while I'll get a message, which I have some messages, private messages from maybe a Gold Star mom or a veteran, and they'll say how much you helped me, or we appreciate your support. And to me, that outweighs
Right.
maybe somebody getting angry at me because I happen to be a patriot. Sorry,
Right.
deal with it. I know, okay, maybe not the smartest business move, but it's.
No, I would disagree. I think it is. I think if you try to please everybody, then you're not serving anyone,
Right.
So I think if you dial into your niche and look, these are the people I serve, and that's it. But you're not going to turn your back if somebody walks in your door and says, hey, I don't agree with your politics, but would you take my headshot? Would you turn them away?
No, of course not.
Correct.
No.
So see, like you're not
right.
You're not discriminating. If they choose to discriminate, that's on them.
Which is usually the way it is too. That's usually.
I have encountered that myself. Dave and I have, and the work that we do, it is insane. People don't want to be a part of, or they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I like what you're doing. You're working for nonprofits. You do. Oh wait, you're on the you believe in this or that. You voted for who? No, they're out. They're just out."
So I have if we have time, I have a quick funny story. I had
Go ahead, send it.
Email from a an actress in New York, and she wrote me an email booking a headshot session, and she was all excited. Oh, I love your work and this and that, and we booked it. I got a deposit from her, a date. I think 2 days later, I got an email from her saying, after doing more research, I'm going to have to cancel our headshot session, and that was kind of it. No other details, but I knew right away. I knew what was going on. So I wrote back, well, what research did you do that made you change your mind? And I decided just kind of give her a little nudge, because I know how they are and how you can get to them. So I signed my name with a little American flag. And somebody told me that was going to trigger her. So she wrote back, and she couldn't contain herself. She wrote back, and she wasn't specific, but she said, by the way, I saw you put an American flag, and I just want you to know I'm a patriot too, and this and that starts like going on this. I'm like, well, okay. She said, I just don't happen to agree with, and she started going through this whole rant about I see people on your website that I can see we don't agree politically. And I wrote back, I said, well, that's the difference between my side and your side. Your side, you're judging me. You don't know me because you don't want to work with me because I'm a patriot, because I love the country and I'm pro-military and love our law enforcement. I said, that's up to you. I said, but I would never, our side would never do that to you. If we don't agree with you politically, I'm not going to not do business with you, so basically, so yeah, it's just, I got a kick out of it though. And how quickly I triggered, it's kind of fun kind of giving them a little needling or whatever. So
it can be fun sometimes. I guess
it is.
Turn it into a game.
We know how to trigger them. So yeah, so I get stuff like that, but but I'm the go-to guy in the conservative movement and news, and veterans know to come to me, so it makes me feel good.
Yeah, so you have developed that name for yourself, that reputation,
which means everything to me. That's I love actors, I love musicians, I love everybody to come to me, but if that's really going to be the focus, of the veterans, and that makes me happy.
What is it about Rob O'Neill that you would like? And I would have just assumed that you would have met him, given the circle.
No, I haven't. I've been trying. I've been getting the word out there. Well, he shot Bin Laden. Doesn't get better than that.
I know. Yeah, so that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. But it's not just that any. I love Medal of Honor recipients. I would love
Yeah.
to get in the studio. Those are my goal too. So just anybody like that. I just love met so many. I just love shooting Navy SEALs. The Marines. They've always been the greatest clients.
I have a Marine Corps friend who's become like family. His name is, well, he goes by Monsoon. We all know him by Monsoon. Actually, my kids, we just named a puppy after him, right?
Oh, that's right.
But his real name is William or Bill. But he was the Gulf War and Vietnam War, and he went on to become California's Teacher of the Year twice, like that kind of guy, right?
Oh,
And
nice.
he's
Yeah.
a freaking character. He's a pain in the ass and all this, but I think you'd love him. Like I should next time he comes, I should bring him down and
Oh,
have
that'd be
you
great.
guys meet him because he's a piece of work. You would never forget meeting him and shooting him for sure.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah. Send them over.
So let me ask you, you mentioned 9/11 earlier and said that changed things for you. Were you in the city, around the city on 9/11?
I was in my studio, excuse me, in Montclair, New Jersey, about half hour from the city. I was, able to see the smoke from the top of my building, but it was just like it affected all Americans too. It was just, I don't know, it was life changing. I think I always like tell another funny story is how when I think I had my moment where I completely changed. It was like the weekend after, and I was sitting in like a little square in the town where a lot of artists would hang out and stuff like that. And we're all obviously all upset and talking about what happened. And I always remember this one girl saying to everybody, "Oh, we're all going to go to the park today, and we're going to light candles, and we're going to send vibes over to Afghanistan." And I remember it's almost like I kind of snapped, and I looked at her and I said, send good vibes to Afghanistan. I said, no, we need to. I don't know if I can say this. We need to send fucking bombs over to Afghanistan. Is what we need to send. It was like really. How do you think? And it was almost that moment. That was my born again moment. I just changed my.
What was her reasoning for wanting to send good vibes to Afghanistan?
I don't know. I don't know how they think. So that's a good question.
It's the weirdest response to 9/11 I have heard. I mean, outside of the terrorists like celebrating and cheering, but you know why they're doing that, right?
Right. Yeah. But
what would make?
Well, that's how kind of I guess the left thinks sometimes. Is in my opinion, that's just that's
wow.
It's not always logical, and it pisses you off, and it's like okay, well, I don't think like this. I'm not with these people anymore. So like,
isn't it wild that you could like I would have heard that on that day and thought, well, that's an isolated kind of crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
This person will never. That mindset will never take over this country. Like this person is going to just understand that soon enough. But isn't it wild that mindset has in fact taken over our country?
No, it's wild. It's scary. It's just frightening. It's very frustrating. That's why we have to be outspoken more, and that we can't be afraid. It's going to hurt, whatever. But we have to be concerned about what's happening in the country. It's getting. This is the scariest time we've been in. We're at the edge right now. So and too many people in this country agree with this socialism or whatever, open borders and what they're teaching in schools. Don't even get me started on that. I know that's off topic from photography, but I can go on about that. That's to me very dangerous and insane, and makes my head explode.
I would have never, ever, ever, ever imagined that we would be experiencing the things we've experienced the past few years.
10 years ago, whatever, 15 years ago.
Where we're going now,
right.
Yeah.
Things that are going on now, people would have been put in jail for, rightly so. We have
just
children.
flip-flops. Like it's just crazy to me. But that is a whole other tangent. Let me, before we wind down here, I see you posting often enough or a handful of times that you're looking for assistance or help or whatever it is. Are you having a hard time? What are you finding in response to those ads? Because here you are, one of the top photographers, if not the top photographer in your industry, in the hardest city, and you're opening up an opportunity for somebody to come work with and learn from you. Are you getting flooded with responses, or are you getting quality responses, or what is?
No. I do. I have somebody I just started finally, and she's closer to my age, and she's so far so good, but it's been very hard. Shockingly, like you said, you would think it would be easy, not to brag, but you think maybe somebody might want to work with me.
You might think, yeah.
But it's just a lot of the people I've got just either lazy, they don't want to work long hours, or they just not responsible, flaky. I would post and hardly get responses. It's like people don't want to work anymore, or young people, I should say. It's very disturbing, So Yeah, no, it was difficult to get somebody, and hopefully they're going to work out. So we'll see. But I have, other than that, I have a great team of assistants and makeup artists that have been
Right.
with me for a long time. So I'm lucky there. But yeah.
What would be your advice to someone who wanted to learn your industry and
Mhm.
learn your area of expertise and your art? What would
Yeah,
be
just
things they could do?
my advice would be, you can go to school, but I went to school just to learn basics, and at the time it was still film, not digital, so it was black and white and darkroom stuff. Best way is to really go to work for a photographer, be an assistant, watch them, maybe look at magazines or, whatever, look at your favorite photographers, try to copy their style and try to learn from them. But then from that, you'll create your own style. That's what I used to do. I used to look at my favorite photographers in magazines and I try to copy them. But then I eventually got my own style. So it's really about basically doing and learning. You just keep shooting, you play with lighting or whatever type of photography you want to do. You just have to keep practicing, keep doing it. The school is only so much you can learn the basics, but you have to
Yeah.
have the feel for it. You have to have the eye for it. So you have to just keep shooting away.
Keep shooting away. All right.
Yeah.
What about making it in New York City in particular? What are some nuggets you can offer people?
Just I don't know, specifically New York. I guess I was lucky. I was doing a lot of things that was happening. I started doing a lot of the news people, a lot of the actors, where they all are. Uh, so I'm just in the right place, I guess. For me, it's just just have to keep pushing and trying. If that's what you want to do, you got to keep going and showing your work and being confident, and don't let negativity turn you down.
Yep.
I got people in the beginning said, one lady looked at my portfolio, said, no, I would, and she worked for CBS TV. She was a publicist. She looked at me and said, nope, I wouldn't use you. She actually said it like that. I mean, wasn't even polite about it. She said, nope, I wouldn't use you. And I'm like, and that could bury somebody, like say,
Right. Right.
oh my God, I must suck.
I got a lot of those answers myself in the
I know. Yeah.
over the years. I've had so many of those. If they bother to get back to you at all,
Right. Exactly.
either they don't get back to you or they're just like, no.
Yeah. Right. I know. But you just can't let that, you makes you, like I said, it makes you stronger. I
Yeah.
always like,
Yeah.
I always like to compare, not that I'm comparing myself, but you hear stories of like, well, they told Elvis to go back to truck driving or
Right.
whatever, so it's
Right.
like, so people in high positions don't always know what's best, I
Recognize
guess,
you.
or
Yeah. They don't always recognize.
they're not experts always. So just,
Yeah.
if you think you're good at what you're doing, just keep doing it. And
Excellent.
hopefully you'll be all right.
All right. So this show is called Flex Your Freedom, and we've touched on a couple areas over it. Whether that is personal freedom, professional, financial, emotional, or freedom in the literal sense that is quickly dwindling in this country. At least I feel it is, and it's at risk. But I'm gonna ask you, what does freedom look like for you? What does it mean for you?
Freedom for me, wow, that's it's the American dream, I guess. Is what America's supposed to be about. We should have freedom of speech, freedom of I don't know, just freedom is America. It's like we have to keep to our old traditional values. We can't let it's not, certainly not socialism. It's not leftist ideology that's ruining freedom. It's not censorship. A lot of censorship going on, as we know. We have to stop that. We got to be able to speak our minds. We have to be able to do what we want. We can't worry about what we say. Um, we have to be able to criticize. We have to want what's best for our children, and without being labeled certain things or whatever. So just, American values is what freedom is. That's what it's all about. But we got to hold on to it because we're losing it.
No, no lie there, man.
Yeah.
All right. So if people want to reach out, follow you, touch you, hire you, learn from you, whatever, all things Barry Morgenstein, how can they do that?
You can go to my website, barrymorgenstein.com. I'm on all over social media. Just look me up on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on Twitter. After being banned for 5 years, I'm back. But yeah, no, I'm on social media, and I'm easy to find. But my website and my phone number is on the site if you guys want to call me or email me. But I'm always promoting on Facebook and Instagram, so I communicate on there a lot too. So
That's a true story. I see you there frequently, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is good because
Right.
it's good to be out there and just keep popping up on people's.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, Barry, thank you so very much for taking the time
Thank you.
to be with us.
You're
It's
great.
been a fun conversation. I think people are going to be able to pull some insight and lessons from you, and as well as maybe just kind of follow your lead a little bit and have some
Great.
courage to stand up for what they believe in.
That would be great. It's
Thanks so
great
much.
talking to you.